Hey guys, what's up? Welcome to yet another episode of Let's Tech About It. This one, Aman and I have planned to make slightly different from our other ones because usually we're talking about what's the big stuff happening in tech, in OTT, what kind of content is doing well, which gadgets seem to work, which don't seem to work, which platforms and ecosystems are working. But similarly, one thing we've noticed that we've benefited from is this sort of revolution, this sort of storm that's been brewing over the last few years, and even things picking up in a country like India. It's not just in the US that podcasts are popular, but it's also India now, where podcasts are the next big thing. English language podcasts, Hindi podcasts, regional language podcasts. Well, it is endless, right? Now they are also getting monetized. A lot of companies to populate their platforms like Spotify or JioSaavn or which are the other ones? And you also have Amazon with Audible and
Mhm.
so many small Indian companies as well are trying to pay creators to create content. Now, Aman and I, well, we approach this whole how do you make your podcast in a very different way. We'll get to that. And Aman and I would be entirely frank with you so that anyone who's tuned in right now will genuinely know what, well, the trials and tribulations are like setting up your own podcast. It's also about Aman and I and our story and why we approach this differently. But the reason we wanted to do this episode, Aman, was a lot of this small and engaged Let's Tech About It community write to us on Instagram and they say, you need to do an episode about how do you set up a podcast. So how did you all set up the Let's Tech About It podcast? Aman and I sat down on endless conversations, right? Aman, I think we have tried from what are the things we've discussed? The mic, the platform,
Yep.
which particular softwares do we want to use? What do we not want to use? What kind of quality do we want? What music do we want? It was fun setting it up. It's like your own little baby, right? And I think
Mhm.
it was just a way to legitimize your conversations with me and make them public to the world.
Exactly. We have talked about tech pretty much all our lives. And this way we were like, you know what? Let's just record ourselves and put it out there. And I'm sure there are some people who will find it useful and find something that we talk about interesting. And, maybe it'll help them make decisions on the kind of tech that they want to, make part of their life. So that was basically our idea of why we decided to do this. And it's obviously nothing new for us because we have been doing it, but what was new is how do we actually do it. So we obviously
That's true.
went through a long list of like Ayush mentioned, different software, the hardware choices that were out there. And as you guys know, just like the other than Apple, the endless number of options you might have for a cell phone, it's the same when it comes to pretty much anything in the tech world. There is so much out there. So, it's about doing the research, testing things out, and figuring out what
Yeah.
actually works for you.
No, and it becomes interesting, guys, because one thing that Aman was very humble about was that it's Aman who comes from, both of us are tech geeks, but Aman professionally chose this path of being an architect. So he's actually a lot into the aesthetics and design of it. Those are things he's understood always, stuff that I'm not necessarily an aficionado or an expert at. But what I seem to understand is the content world. I come in from a media background. So this, the right side of the right kind of sound or the right kind of video is something that I would stress on. But we didn't want to make this something that the two of us would stress about. We have day jobs, we have gigs, we have to do all sorts of things for our bosses and at home, and it's a uh, I'm sure everyone has their own stresses and worries, but for us this was not something that we were looking at to make a lot of money. We were doing this, well, essentially to just connect, chat about it, and not say that we didn't do podcasts. Now, strangely enough, a lot of people have approached us to sponsor episodes on this podcast. We're still trying to develop a policy for ourselves. There are times when Aman is very busy. There are times when I am busy. Sometimes our time zones don't match. So there's all sort of issues we face. But our objective is that we've said it should be a chill, casual approach where we do good research and we spar and fight it out, but we document it for you to see. So that's the kind of background we come from. That's the kind of intentions that we had. And it's been a fun ride. I think we started in January. and we're halfway through the year. We've done some interesting things, but the whole conversation started with me telling Aman, we need a very good software to do this, and we need to understand how to distribute it. So he said, oh, we're going to be doing it on Spotify. And I think Aman thought it'll be an audio only thing. And then that's when, we were deliberating, saying, shouldn't this also be video? Because we'd love to see each other while we talk,
Yeah.
and maybe you don't mind seeing us as well. And also, strangely, Aman, a lot of the stuff that we do on this podcast, even if YouTube is a small community for us, because this is not a YouTube only show,
Mhm.
maybe if Spotify video launches in India sooner, then this
Yeah.
would be more fun, because we are well ahead of the curve with our video podcast. But that said, it's the two of us tech geeks, and on Instagram is where, and LinkedIn is where a lot of people seem to be interested in terms of what we're doing. That's where I get all the requests to collaborate and sponsor.
Mhm. That's why we're actually doing all our promotions, right? We always put it up on Instagram, but the actual traction or the actual conversations are through LinkedIn, which is really interesting, because I know my boss from 5 years ago commenting on my LinkedIn post and not my Instagram post. So it does seem to have taken quite a good sort of track on this sort of LinkedIn responses that we're getting. So it's turned out to be quite a bit of a surprise, but a good one, and something that we will, continue to promote and continue to link on our LinkedIn profiles, because it's definitely, for us, it's also about doing a little more research and looking at technology with a bit of an analytical mind, and not simply saying this is an iPhone, this is the camera. We wanted to go beyond that sort of review, because a lot of this is we're not being sent devices yet from companies to review, right? It's us. Well, it just happened, or it started with both of us buying the new iPhone, and that's what sort of spurred the first episode and onwards, and obviously the iPads and things like that. But when it comes to other things, we want to look at it more in the sense of, why did the company do this? What are they thinking about? Why should it matter to you and I, or why should it not matter to you and I? So we wanted to give it a sort of different take, rather than just saying, this is the iPhone, or this is this product, and this is what it's going to do for you. So hopefully we've been quite successful at doing that, and you guys are enjoying listening to us.
You're right, Aman. I'm glad that we were on the same page about that, because that's actually the first question you need to ask yourself, in terms of what sort of niche are you adding to, what kind of work already exists, what seems to work, and how much are you willing to take a risk in doing things slightly differently. Now, Aman and I are confident that between the two of us, what we understand together with putting our skill sets together is the fact that we know design, we know branding, marketing, we know a little bit about tech as well, and we love chatting with each other. We're best friends, so it's a recipe for us to have low expectations, but then there's automatically a higher reward when you're not going in there with that sole agenda or objective of it, because it is very manageable with your other things as well. It can be a side hustle, but we keep it going because we believe in the format. But that said, the first thing after that question was answered, how are you adding to a niche? What is your niche? And what will you do to really take it to the next level? And that's what we're learning. It's an ongoing process. Aman and I are learning. And then we got into a long debate about microphones. Now, when lockdown happened all over the world in March last year, I think April or May is by the time you came to terms and started grappling with the situation that this is it for a while now. This is going to be our lives. So we need to start adapting. I was in a session, Aman, where a senior CEO of a top company told me, he says, Ayush, we're not going to be investing in clothes anymore because we've been at home, and we will be at home for longer periods than before. So we need to invest in a digital wardrobe. And a digital wardrobe included a good webcam or a good internal camera, a good microphone, maybe good headphones, a light. Basically, our 101 for this podcast. I have a ring light over here which I use. You can see it reflecting out there in my TV. Sometimes someone shouts at me to correct my frame. I have an AKG Lyra. This, if you're a musician, fantastic mic. If you're a budding voiceover artist, brilliant. If you're into, well, community and podcast like apps, sort of things, it's great as well because it's got a front mode, front and back, tight stereo, wide stereo. So it manages to get the entire room in any form. Right now, it's just a traditional mic. It's also great for gaming. I prefer this to the Blue Yeti, which is perhaps the most overrated mic in the world, and I somehow it puts me off. And Aman and I have never taken.
It doesn't look good
Well,
either.
and it's not like Aman and I have ever taken the usual path. We've always tried to do things differently. Aman, sitting in the US, had more options and different options. A lot of Chinese manufacturers, well, they changed their brand names and they were rebranding in America with slightly different ones. But essentially, Aman, what is that?
It's
Mauno,
Thrawn
Pfeiffe.
Max.
No, I'm saying the brands are pretty similar, but the one Aman uses is
Yeah.
quite good. We don't have it here in India. If you're in the US, it's a Thrawn Max. It costs you about what, $200? How much
I
did
think
it
it was
cost?
about like $125, $150 or something like that. And I honestly, I also like the look of it a lot, which is another reason why I got it. And you know, it matters to me, right? I need my things to look nice. So it's a good mic. It's similar to Ayush's in the sense that it has, one directional, two directional, all around. It can do all of those things, and it gives you volume controls on it. So I did try out another one before this one, which was more like a $30 microphone. And while it did the job, it doesn't really give me the sort of control to actually, change the levels or change the type of recording. So, the fact that we want this to go on for, as long as it possibly can go on for, we decided that it would be best to invest in something a little more professional and a little more long lasting.
No, it's right. And there are times, obviously. And guys, can I tell you something about understanding a little bit about content creation? If anyone is tuned in and you're still figuring out how to set up a vlog or a podcast, look, you might fail. And the best of us fail. It might take 1 episode, 2 episodes, 10 episodes, 100 episodes. But it's when you give up that you're already out of the race. And if you keep procrastinating about, I will do it one day, chances are you'll never do it one
Not
day.
gonna do it.
Or that day will never come, and life will pile up, and things will pile up, and you're going to get distracted at the end of the day. Does it mean you go and buy the best equipment? No. Understand what your budget is, what your need is. Do I need to soundproof the room? No, I'm recording at 2 a.m. Aman's got a long weekend and, he's recording in the afternoon. Sometimes there's ambulances making, all sorts of noises outside my house, fire trucks outside Aman's. We've taken breaks. There are ways to come around. We've had a lot of issues technically as well. The mics have never, touch wood, bothered us that way. You need to make sure that it's set in the right way. There's something called gain. I'm going to lift this up for those of you watching this on YouTube or Instagram. And these levers at the back, essentially, and I'm going to place it very slowly back down. I hope that didn't bother you on Spotify. And when you adjust the gain, that means, okay, my voice might sound great, or I could come really close to the mic and I could talk like this. But the truth is that you should just be yourself. And if this is how you sound, this is how you sound, because people don't want you to be a voiceover artist. I'm not trying to be. This is exactly how I sound with Aman every day. And if you think that there's, I'll sit at a distance and look much better, and I don't want my face to show, or if it's an audio podcast, when you increase the gain, remember that your fan, your air conditioner, the cat making noises outside, your parents talking in the hall, your girlfriend shouting from the kitchen, all of that gets picked up even more because you're increasing the sensitivity. And that's why Aman and I spend 10 to 15 minutes every week making sure that's right. We've messed up a couple of times, but we've learned from our mistakes.
Yeah. And, there's always ways to correct things in your editing, in your production. It's good. Just get onto YouTube, whatever software you decide to use, be it Premiere Pro, Audacity,
InShot,
Final Cut, InShot, whatever it is. There are tutorials for every software you can imagine, and it is worth spending, it's a 10-minute video or maybe a 20-minute video, but it'll give you little things that you might not know. I use Premiere Pro because it's just something that I've used from before. I had a little experience with it, but still, I still look at tutorials, especially when I'm editing our audio. I want to cut out some kind of sound that might come up in one episode because I don't know, the USB connection messed up, whatever it might be. I'll look at tutorials that'll tell me, oh, go in, put this effect, put this filter, and it works. And hey, I got my problem solved by just Googling it and someone else telling me what to do. So don't feel shy in looking up how to do things on whatever software you land up choosing. And actually, Ayush and I recorded an audio only first episode, just and that was basically our test, right? We were just testing out
Yeah.
that, okay, let's have a conversation and let's record the audio and see how we sound. And
Yeah.
we actually just recorded ourselves talking and we were like, yep, this works, let's do it. So don't procrastinate, just do it.
That's
Just
true.
give it your best, record it, see how it sounds. And if you don't like it, maybe you don't do it, or you change it up, or you try a different way of doing it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And yeah, so maybe we can talk a little bit about the software and not keep on
That's
going
true.
on with this lecture. But all in all, just do it. It's fun. Keep it casual. Be yourself. Don't stress about it, and just let it flow naturally.
See, that's Aman. And trust me, in 6 months, for a guy who had never faced a camera and never needed to talk on a mic, he's become quite the pro. Also because he's learned well, he's dived into the deep end. He's pretty much been trial by fire, and I think it's worked for him. For some of us, you need more theory, then go for it. Read up a little bit more, but make the move. Moving on, Aman was right. There are many softwares involved which scare you, but don't get scared. To be honest, if you look at the softwares needed to record and then to distribute, these are the two softwares. And then, of course, softwares need to record, edit, and then distribute, right? So,
Mhm.
what are you going to use? Let's break it down. To record, this one, Aman's going to break it down because he's had the biggest issues.
Yeah.
We were paying for a service, and we got to tell you about it. It's called Riverside FM, and I'm just going to stop after saying one line. It was perhaps the biggest, the only cause or reason potentially for Aman and me to get heart attacks at such a young age, because the days it performed, it made us very happy, and the days it didn't perform, it gave us heart problems.
I wanted to throw something at my screens when I was editing because it was frustrating. Um, it sounded very promising, which is why we decided to use it. It said that they would give us high quality video and audio tracks, which, to be fair, it did, but only when it performed. And mostly it never did because it had all these different glitches. The frame rates would never match up. It did not allow me to select a frame rate. It did not allow me to say I want a constant frame rate. It just didn't have any of that kind of functionality. I use a converter to actually take that raw video file, put it through a software that would convert it into a constant frame rate file. And even after doing that, my audio and video would never sync up. It was just a pain. And honestly, it was just becoming so hard to edit that it was actually a reason why we were just like, okay, we have the episode recorded, but we just can't put it out there because the files are so messed up that it just
I
would
think
never look or sound correct.
I think a couple of times I had to really push Aman and say, look, man, let's not be perfectionists. I know this is crap. Our content, in fact, 2 episodes, the ones we did on Google, were perhaps better than most of our episodes put together. Like, they were international television ready in terms of pure content, or YouTube MKBHD ready, or Mr. Who's the Boss ready. But our execution with that stupid software made it impossible. They said they had a new app. I downloaded the app on my iPhone. I used it. I looked like I was $1,000,000, but that was only for the first 3 minutes. After that, I disappeared. And then I was talking about Sundar Pichai, and Aman was responding to the Samsung Galaxy Watch. So nothing was syncing up. It was not switching right. It was a disaster, in short. And then we moved on, tried a few more, and now we're just spilling the beans out there, we just thought we'll try Zoom, which is what we're recording on now. And surprisingly, with all the best settings turned on in Tweakfast, it's working fine for now. And I think it's more stable than the others. And we also do record often backup files with our cameras. But look, I've told you this before. If you have an editing team or a set of people who can help you out, great. For Aman and me, it's just the two of us ideating, brainstorming, executing. It becomes tough with our jobs. It becomes tough with our time zone differences. So we're sticking to this. We obviously select the mic. We make sure we have headphones on, so we're monitoring each other's sound. That's a reminder that there are sounds all over us. And yeah, that's what we essentially do. We then get the raw files, which Aman then puts on a timeline, edits it on Premiere Pro. Sometimes we use FCP if needed. We've also used mobile softwares whenever needed, when we're in a rush or we're both traveling or I'm out on a shoot, and put it together. And then Aman sends me a file. I quality control it, send it back to him. He checks it once more, and then he publishes it. But now you'll wonder, how is Let's Tech About It on Spotify, on Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts? So it's everywhere, right? What we essentially have is an RSS feed, which is our blueprint or fingerprint on the internet for the Let's Tech About It podcast. Now that has to be shared with these guys for them to publish it once we've been approved. But now who's going to go through all of this, stress of getting it approved? Aman and I found the simplest, most elementary form of a podcast hosting or a podcast distribution platform. And it happens to be Anchor. Anchor is owned by Spotify. They bought it a few years ago, and hence they encourage young and small creators to put, great podcasts out there. But what does that mean? That's an audio-only podcast. You can also record on Anchor, but there are many restrictions in terms of how many minutes, what you can do, and stuff like that. So Aman gives me the audio file. We put it on Anchor, and it goes out on all the audio platforms. We also put out video versions and teasers, like Aman said, on YouTube, on LinkedIn, on Instagram, wherever you want to see these two geeks teching about it. So Aman, I think that in a nutshell is how we put it together. But there have been some interesting learnings about doing this, right? About time management, about some of the guests we've had on board, about maintaining quality with guests, about jump cuts, all sorts of stuff, right? So
I think going on and on.
Not going on and on. We're doing it right now. But that said, I think there's a lot of learnings along the way. Just to recap, make sure that you invest in a good microphone. You could start off with anything like 2,000 rupees all the way up to 10 to 15,000 rupees to get a very good mic. And I'm talking about a mic which is very, almost world-class for podcasts. If you have a problem of sibilances and hisses, don't worry, it's not the mic. Make sure that the mic, and this is from a voiceover standpoint, make sure that the mic is adjusted to a low gain. You come closer to the mic. And if you're worried about it, for 100 or 200 rupees, you get a pop filter. A pop filter makes sure I don't go pop, pop, pop. I'm sorry for those of you all tuned in, but to avoid that whilst I'm talking, the best way to do it is to get a pop filter. And I think that I have it lying around here. I don't want to get up and pick it up, but it's essentially a small attachment to the mic. You can even get a whole setup for it. Make sure that you're in a semi-soundproof, or at least close all the doors. The fan is not at too high a speed, or the air conditioner is not making too much noise. And there's no dogs, cats, raccoons, ex-girlfriends, all of them around you trying to make some sort of noise or cacophony. Aman, you were saying something about...
Yes, I did want to add one thing, because we also forgot to tell everyone is we use MacBooks. Our mics are connected to our MacBooks. We use Zoom on the MacBook. One thing that I still tell Ayush even today is I want to try and keep both our recording devices the same so that the quality stays the same, because both our MacBooks have the same camera, which basically means our video quality stays the same. And this is just me being a little bit anal about, the look of the podcast. And that's why I stress about us using the same, the same sort of recording device in terms of the camera. And then if you're doing an iPad, make sure both are using iPads, because it just looks a little better, right? It looks like even though we're not in the studio, we're just sitting in our own houses, it almost looks like we're using the same camera to record us. So that just sort of a different angle or take to recording yourself and recording with a friend or with someone in another location. And that's why you might even notice when we have our guests, their video might be a little hazy, or it's just because we're doing this remotely, obviously. So we try and make the best from what is available to us as well as our guests.
Absolutely. So I think there's been several learnings, and it's an ongoing learning process. We enjoy making this podcast, hence we do it. If you do experiment, a lot of y'all write to me about how y'all are camera shy and how you want to get better in front of a microphone. Well, then this is a great way to start, right?
Just
Look at
do
Aman,
it.
he's become a pro already. And yeah, I think those are some of the learnings. I want you guys to continue writing to us. This particular episode originated from a question we got on Instagram about how we did it. This is your answer, my friend. So if you want to share this, please do drop a comment, like, comment, share, subscribe. Let's Tech About It is your friendly neighborhood tech podcast where we're just getting geeky for you, so that you don't have to go through all the megabytes of data that we go through just to get all that information for you, and the pain of setting up a podcast, which is also a lot of fun. So if this sort of helped you, then please tell us in the comment section. If there's any more questions you have, please let us know as well. Write to us if you're tuned in on Spotify or on Apple Podcasts or Google Podcasts. Tune in. If you're tuned in there, then write to us on letstechpodcast@gmail.com. This is Aman and I saying shukriya, bahut shukriya. Goodbye for now, and adios amigos.